Well, hello there, my internet friends. My name is John Jags, and today we are talking about how to do some basic box package modeling in Cinema 4D. I want to show you how I would approach modeling something like this so that when I get a template or a packaging file that looks like this, I can just export this straight from Illustrator, slap it in a Photoshop file, then I get a cool box render that I can use for my 3D animation stuff. So, without further ado, let's go into the computer machine and talk about box stuff. Alright, we are in Cinema 4D, and the first thing that you will need is to take a box and measure it. So, get a ruler. I highly recommend this. A stiff ruler like this. Measure in centimeters because that's what Cinema 4D uses. Make a cube. Click the cube button. Then we're going to hit the X size, and we're going to set this to 8.9. So 8.9. Then the Y is 17.8. And then the Z, how deep it is, 7.1. Now we're going to use those things to remember. Remember 7.1, how deep it is. So 7.1. Now, one thing that is worth mentioning is we're making this to scale, so Cinema 4D likes to be big, but we're going to get in there nice and small. And we can see on this that if we get nice and close, we're not getting any clipping. That's because if you hit Control D on your keyboard, and if you go to your view clipping, I have this set to tiny because everything is so tiny. So we're gonna, if we set that to huge, hypothetically, we zoom out. Oh God, where'd the box go? Typically it comes in as medium, so if you get in there nice and close, it'll start clipping. So I just set this to tiny. Don't forget to do that, save, go back to your cube. And now we have some hard edges on this. And if you look at any box, any packaging for a simple thing, you have some rounding on here. So what we're gonna do is we're going to click on the fillet. And now it looks like a pill or a pillow or something. We're gonna decrease that radius to like what, 0.1? Yeah, that looks pretty good. Gives us some radius. If we hit NB on the keyboard, we get some garage shading lines. We can see where that, where those lines are. Cool. All right, we're moving somewhere. Maybe set this to 4 subdivisions just because I like round numbers. And then we're gonna hit the scary C key because then we're going to make this object editable, which means we will be able to change the polygons and whatnot. So let's do that. Hit C, and then we're going to go to the back side, which should be this one right here. Now, if we want to get the inside of the box, we got to do some extrusion. So let's select our live selection tool. If you hit 9 on your keyboard, you should be able to do that. And then we will hit MT, and not MT, and Y, MT. Sorry, I hit Y by mistake. And we're gonna set this to -7. Boop. Or just set there, -7. Nope. -7. And the reason why we're choosing -7 is because we know that the depth of the box is 7.1. So if we go in, the depth of the cardboard is about 0.1 centimeters or 1 millimeter, so that should work out to make this more physically accurate. So now we have our box, and we have the inside of that, and now we can very, very conveniently and easily start making a UV map. Now, Control S, save early, save often, as Mr. EJ, the king of Cinema 4D tutorials, would say. Let's go to Body Paint UV Edit. So go to this drop-down menu up here for your layout, Body Paint UV Edit, and it'll put us in a mode where we can adjust the UV. So if we hit Control A and set UV from projection, it's not going to do anything. And if we were to put a material on this, it would just be all wanky, janky, and weird. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit Frontal, and now it's just giving us our perspective from our default camera. Hit Control T, and we're going to just put that over there. Doesn't matter. Next, we're going to go to our live selection tool again, select outside of it so that we deselect everything, then select the front face of the box. Now, if we go to our select menu in the upper left-hand corner, click on the dotted lines that should extend out that menu so we can have access to some of the tools in there. We're going to zoom in nice and close. We're going to see what happens if we hit this grow selection button. And hey, look, it grew our selection by 1 polygon. We're going to hit that a couple times. Boop, 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 boop. Cool. So now what we could do, actually, first off, let's make sure that we are getting all this stuff right here. Now, if you were to hit box by just sheer chance, it will give you that shape right there, but we don't have any of this selected. So let's undo that really quick. Let's grow selection a couple more times. Now, the reason why I showed you that is it's gonna do one small weird thing. You hit box, you get this weird stuff on the side. That is all of these beveled edges on the back side of it. So we have to put those back into place. So with everything, all this selected we have right here, what we're gonna do is we're gonna hit Control T. Oh, no. Undo that. Control T. What I'm trying to do is select all of this stuff right here. So just brushing on the UV map and hit Control T. And we're gonna scale this down to 50% because I wanna put the backside, the inside of the box on this UV map as well. So let's just bring that down to 50%. And then we'll scooch that up there in the upper left-hand corner. Just remember where that is. Now what you're gonna do is you're going to select the inverse. So you go to select inverse or just invert, and then we're gonna hit box. And hey, and we know that we scaled it down to 50%, so let's do the same thing here. 50, 50, 50. We can just scooch that down. Oh, not move the anchor point. When you have the cross right there, the compass, that means you're moving the actual polygons on the UV map. Now, just to my brain, I don't know why, but I like to rotate this 180 degrees. So I know it's the inside. You can do this however you want. So, boop. Now, from here, all we got to do is then select all of these polygons. So we'll go to our live selection tool again. So we'll select this. And not this part, so just the very top. And we'll hit Control T, and you'll move this to, I believe, that would be this part right here. Zoom in, nice and close. And you put that right. Scooch that right into place, get as close as you can, and then let's just double check and make sure that those polygons are where they need to be. So go to Live Selection Tool. What are these? Where do you guys live? That should be, oh, that's on the other side. Okay, and where are these guys? Aha, so it is doing a weird funky thing. Aha, it's because I'm selecting that. Okay, nope, that makes sense. So what we should do is if I select this one, which is the one that we just moved, and then this one, it's on the opposite side. So let's just increase the size of our live selection tool. So to do that, what you do is you hold the middle mouse button on your mouse and then just move, and you can change the scale and just select all of these guys. Make sure we go to the other side of that. Select these guys, hold shift and then hit Control T, and then let's just flip this. So move your mouse around and then wait until you have the rotating arrows and then flip that. And then that should be, in theory, where it needs to be. Smaller selection tool. And I think that's where we need it to be. So, boop, boop. Yeah, that's pretty good. That gets the job done. Let's zoom out and let's do it again for the other 4 sides. So, let's select these guys. Boop, and then these guys should, in theory, go right here. I believe so. No, it should actually, boop. So if I move around my perspective, that's there, that's this face, and then that is these faces. So these, in theory, should maybe be rotated by 180 degrees because the other one that we had to do also needed to be flipped 180 degrees. So we just scooch that right there and just start moving it into place. Cool. Okay. Scooch out. There we go. All right, and let's just double check and make sure that's where they need to be. Live selection tool, boop, 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 boop. And I'm checking that by looking over in my default camera on this side, and I'm just making sure that all that stuff. And then if I zoom in nice and close, was I correct on the flipping? So that is inside. Nope. So let's go back here, rotate these 180 degrees again. Boop. And that should now, in theory, be where it needs to be. Boop. Yes, those are correct. All right, moving on. Let us select live selection, polygon, boop. And now, theoretically, nope, I meant to select, boop, select you guys. And if you don't know, you're using the 1 and 2 keys on your keyboard, you will be able to move around your UV and change your position and your view. And that should, in theory, be down here. So let's just zoom in there, put this into position. Get that as close as I can. Now, let's zoom out and let's see where this stuff is. So if I went to my live selection tool and then make that smaller, let's select this corner. Now that would mean, okay, so we selected this corner on the object. That should, in theory, mean that these polygons are right next to it, and they're not. So what we're gonna do is we're going to zoom in one more time, actually. Select all that stuff that we just moved, and then Control T, and then 180. And then now that should have put us where we need to be. Oop. That's there. That's also there. Cool. Okay, that's where we need to be right there. And then this last corner, which would be these 2 polygons, should go right next to where it belongs. So, is that going to work? That going to work? Let's see. Okay, now let's zoom out and make sure we're selecting the polygons that we need to. Okay, cool. And then let's select this guy. Boop. Select this guy. Boop. Yep, those are the matching ones. It's like a puzzle, so to speak, and that makes me happy when things work out like that. So now we have our front, we have our inside. Now if we select this polygon on the UV edit, or on the UV tool, that is this front face, and if we select this, it's a little weird, and like as we see it, it's not correct. So let's zoom in here, make sure that those are just the polygons, and then boop, 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 boop. Let's flip this and make sure that goes there. Now this, aha, yes, now we can drag this guy directly into the center of these guys. Let's just align with the top guy right there. Boop. Then select this and scooch right there. Boop. And then scooch in. And then last one. Boop. There we go. All right, we have our front, we have our back. Now, obviously it's a little small on the UV map, but what we can do is now we can select these guys. Maybe we'll increase a big brush, make sure we're selecting all the little guys. Control T, maybe set this like 120. And then 120, 120. Make sure you scale up everything. And then Control T, move it there. Then select these guys. Ooh. Control T, 120, 120, 120. Okay, and now we have a UV map that we're working with. So now what we can do is we can go to File and New Texture. And we'll save this Geek Out Small Box UV Template 01. I like working 4096 by 4096 4K, but up to you, whatever you're feeling. Click OK, and now we have a UV. Let's go to File and then Save Texture As. I always like working with a Photoshop file, so we'll go to Photoshop PSD. Click OK, and it'll prompt us to save. We'll call this big. That's exactly where it needs to be. Elements, 3D textures in my Geek Out folder. So that's where exactly where it needs to be. So now what we can do is just hit save. Now we're gonna hit Control A on all of our polygons. We'll go to Image, Layer, and do Create UV Mesh Layer. And what that will do is that should give us a sort of layer that'll overlay on top of everything and basically give us an outline or a frame of reference in Photoshop. So I'll hit save, go to File, Save Texture. We're gonna click on Photoshop and open up Photoshop. While that opens, let's just chill out for a second. Boop, 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 boop.
A few moments later.
We'll go to that file. We'll go to Elements, 3D Models. No, not 3D Models, 3D Textures, excuse me. And just drag that in and let's take a look. Aha, we have a UV mesh layer right here. And then we have our inner stuff. So now what you could do is you could go into your Illustrator file and I want to export this. So we'll go to File and Export. Export for screens, sure. We'll call this Geek Out 90s. 90s underscore box front. Save this in a specific folder, production files, sure. Geek Out 90s. I like saving in width and then set this to 2160 as a PNG. That's fine, all of that is fine. And then what we're gonna do is, export artboard, and it just saved that. So now what we can do is open up that, drag it into our Photoshop file, scale it up, and then we're going to just make sure we put the Geek Out layer below. And I know that's white and the box is white. That's not helping. So right click on the UV mesh layer, blending options, and then color overlay. Set this to black or something that's easy to see. Okay. And then you kind of just like, oh, come on. Color overlay, black. Okay, okay. And then we're gonna lock that so that we don't touch it. And then we're gonna scooch everything into place where it needs to be. Now, one thing I do know is that the little square right there has a little bit of overlap with that little circle. So I'm kind of just eyeballing that, getting that to be as close as I can. So let's first center this up. And I suddenly realized that I didn't bring all these polygons to touch. So what we're gonna do is we're going to save that, go back to Cinema4D really quick, and we're gonna go in and select all these top bits. Oop. 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 Control T and just scooch this right down into place. Right there? Sure, that works. Now we're gonna go to my window and body paint and then layer manager, and that should show us the layers that we have in the Photoshop file that Cinema4D is making. So what we're gonna do is go back to the Photoshop file. We're gonna close this. We're gonna delete that previous UV mesh layer because I realized it's not quite what we need it to be. We want things to be touching. So now let's just go in and re-edit that really quick. So just live selection tool, boop, 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 Control T, scooch that right into place. Nope, I did not quite. It's so close, but so far. Cool, okay, next we'll do the bottom one. Oh, make sure we deselect everything else. Hold shift to add to your selection. I know I keep saying those keybinds over and over again. Have you ever Twitch streamed before? It's one of those things where you just kind of have to keep talking, but I hope you enjoy my company. I know I enjoy yours. Just put that right there, boop. And then last one. Scooch this. And let's just double check our work. Looks good. Looks good to me. Save, file, save texture. Back to Photoshop.
3 days later.
Do 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 do. I realized I did a bad. There's one more thing we got to do. We made that texture map, but what we didn't do is make sure you select the right UV tag. So the little checker tag, that is your UV map, and one of them is broken and not there. So just delete that one. You can tell by looking at the UV editor tool, and this one has what we were doing. This one does not. So let's delete that, go to textures, and then go to the template that we were just working on. Let's make sure that's all connected. Yes, it is. So file, save texture. Then we're going to go to layer and then select all of our polygons. First layer and then create UV mesh layer. That should, in theory, give us those lines again. And then we will go to save texture. Then we'll go back to Photoshop. We will open that, and that should, in theory, be, be touching. Cool. Now let's bring in the box front. And then scale this into position. Put that below that. And just make sure we're staying in the scaling and whatnot. Go back here, blending options, color overlay, set that to black just for convenience sake. Let's lock that layer. Just scooch this into place. This looks like it needs to be just a touch bigger. So let's say what? 275? Yeah, that looks like it's getting where it needs to be. Let's look at the sides. Yeah, it looks like on the box here that the top, this little square, so it's kind of like just trying to eyeball it and get as close to you as you can. So maybe this needs to be what, 265? And then scooch it up. Maybe 270. 270. Yeah, that's looking good. That's looking pretty close. Make sure it's centered in there as close as we need to. Cool. And then from here, what you could do is you could find a cardboard texture. So I'm just gonna go into my Creative Cloud files and then image elements. Do I have a paper texture or a cardboard texture? Why are you being weird? Open a new window. Come on, Windows. Oh, come on. And then textures. And then paper. Because on the inside, it kind of looks like paper. So just for example, paper textures. Yeah, that looks fine. Drop that in there. And then just put that there. And then we'll put that below that, and then we'll turn off the UV edit layer, because if you save it again like this with the UV layer, it'll just be on your texture. Hit save, file, export, quick export as PNG, 3D textures, box UVs, geek out small box, 90s UV 01, close Photoshop, close all this nonsense. Boop. Boop. 90s. Elements. 3D textures. Box UVs. Let's go back to Cinema4D really quick and set this back to our standard mode. Getting very close, ladies and gentlemen. Drag this in. Boop. No, because I know exactly where it's saved. Let's zoom out. Go to our regular object selection tool, drag this on, and hey, look at that. How cool is that? Hit NA, and if you hit Control R on your keyboard, you have a box. Obviously, we could do some fun things with this now. We could take this into Substance, give it some cardboard textures. You could add some normal maps, but hey, now we have a box template, and I know that this game, for example, this box is pretty uniform across the company, and I built a template that I can work with this. Now, in a future tutorial, I'll talk about how to do the little die cut here, but this should get you started on how to do some basic box stuff in Cinema4D for your 3D product stuff, whatever you're doing. I hope this was helpful. I hope this was useful. I know it was a long one, but if it was, let me know in the comment section down below, or if you have comments, questions, concerns, whatever else, you can find me on Instagram at Jags. Just send me a DM there, and I'll normally send back a voice message or just like trying to walk you through it. And yeah, if this was helpful in any way and you want to show some support, hitting that like button is actually incredibly useful. So punch it as hard as you can. It would make me very happy. And yeah, if you want to join the party, that subscribe button is also down there for you. Maybe hit that bell. It lets you know whenever I make something probably useful on Cinema4D or motion graphics and After Effects. But if not, you don't need to join the party. I totally get it. I appreciate you anyways for taking the time. I hope it was worth it to your life. And yeah, last thing, have a wonderful day and eat 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight and you'll make some gains. Goodbye, my friends. Bye.